Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the fireside chat titled Reskilling the Workforce, the New Normal for All. And in this chat, Alpana Datta, Partner, People Advisory Services, EY India, will be in conversation with Rajesh Ramdas, Senior Vice President, India Business Head, Fusion BPO Services, and Geeta Digankar, Head of Shared Services. Alpana, the floor is all yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. This is Alpana Datta, and I'm your moderator for this session, which is on this very hot topic of reskilling the workforce, the new normal for all. Now, in terms of quick introduction, I'm a partner with EY, and I have close to 2 decades of experience in working across the spectrum of HR consulting and also on the agenda of future of work. And as a part of my portfolio, I also focus extensively on helping captives and BPOs gain strategic advantage through their human capital. So it is my absolute pleasure to be here today and to be in conversation with our esteemed panelists, Rajesh and Geeta. So let me invite them to give us a very quick round of introduction, starting with yourself, Rajesh.
Hey, thanks, Alpana, and thanks for setting the stage for this. My name is Rajesh Ramdas. I live in Calcutta, and I've been living here for about 10 months now. I've come with about 27 years of work experience, with roughly about 20 odd years in customer service as well as in the business process outsourcing world. I've done both the client side role as well as the BPO side of role, and leading the India business unit for Fusion BPO.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Geeta?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Very pleased to be here and looking forward to our discussion. Just a bit of my introduction. I have almost 20 years of experience, out of which 15 years are in the BPM and the shared services segment, where I've helped a couple of organizations like Thomas Cook and Tata Business Support Services to set up their shared services. So today what I want to bring on table is a perspective from shared services who also deals with BPM and what the skill set requirement will be, because being closer to stakeholders, I think the entire issue on the skill set becomes a twisted. So, I'm happy to share my thoughts today on this, Alpana.
Fantastic. So let's really dive right in, as we say. So the BPO industry has been discussing this topic of reskilling for a while. And there have been a lot of conversations on the pace at which this agenda needs to move. In fact, I'm reminded of an EY report on future of jobs, which was published in 2017, which projected that the IT BPM industry was projected to have amongst the biggest skill disruptions in as soon as 2022, which was 5 years from the time when the research was done. So now, depending on the sub-segment within this industry that an organization is in, it was projected that by 2022, as high as 20% of the workforce may be deployed in completely new kinds of skills and new kinds of jobs. Maybe about 60 to 65% of the workforce will likely go through a radical change in the skill set. And it also projected that as high as 20 to 35% of the population may face a risk of redundancy if they were not reskilled. So this topic has been a hot topic for a while. It's not a new topic, though we know that, it has taken a whole new avatar right now. So Rajesh, if I was to ask you, what in your view has been some of those key business triggers and areas which have propelled this change in the industry over these years?
So I think, Alpana, point number one, which you actually touched upon very well, is the fact that reskilling as a concept is not something which has been forced on us by the so-called pandemic. I mean, that sort of has elevated it to another level. Okay. If you really, take a step back and with someone who's put in, 20 plus years in this industry, and if I think back, when did this all start, or when did I actually start feeling that, there is reskilling that definitely needs to happen? And I'll share a very small anecdote out here. Okay, this is sometime in 2004, when a very large tech company wanted to start doing upselling on their tech support queue. And I had outside my room close to about 30 agents who walked up and told me, look, we are techies, we don't sell. And I had to tell them and convince them that, look, the world is changing and this is the best way to actually do this. And I remember the first set of sales orientation that we did that in 2004. So it's not a new concept. So we've done it way behind. Okay. So what really prompts this is, I think, 2 or 3 things which really prompts this, which is one, the paradigm shift and the business objectives of the client, correct? So when there is a paradigm shift, and when I say paradigm shift, I mean, I think, the speaker before us was also talking about it, which is basically the new age generation. They're moving towards data. They're connected. So, they may not want to, really speak to a contact center agent. So what are we doing from a skilling standpoint? In India, if you really look at it, most agents will come with brilliant, speech or their ability to speak to customers. Have you seen by any chance, even today, and I'm saying that with a lot of conviction, even today, if you see, I have seen emails where I have seen agents using, abbreviations. I mean, that's like a no. I mean, customer experience dies that minute, the moment you have, people using abbreviations on emails, correct? So I think skilling as a concept, and as you rightly said, I mean, things are on a constant change. And if you're not able to predict the change, and if you're not able to skill the people, then you're going to be hitting, it's going to be bad for you. I mean, and if your data says, right, 20% will be redundant, answer is yes. I mean, unless and until people understand organizations as well as people, they or the agents understand this, and if they don't reskill themselves, I think they're up for some serious this thing. So just to sort of put it in a nutshell, reskilling has been on for ages in our industry at least. It's just that maybe the pandemic changed it completely, and maybe we can discuss that in a later point. But as a reskilling, it's been there for close to about 18, 19 years. In fact, there are enough articles that are there about it.
So what you're saying is basically that, it has been such a front and center topic because it has been so critical to business continuity always, right?
Absolutely.
As the world was moving, as the world was changing, it was absolutely imperative that in the BPO industry also the skill agenda is always front and center. Because if you lose that, you lose the basic proposition as to why you would be getting business, because there's only that far that you can go with the first wave of cost advantage. And after that, unless the skill agenda is front and center, neither will you be able to retain that, nor will you be able to really go up to a better place in the value chain. So it has always been important.
Absolutely.
So Geeta, when we were speaking, you were talking about this very interesting combination of attitude and aptitude, which is really required for an organization to do justice to its upskilling and reskilling agenda. So why don't you share with us some of your experience around that?
Sure. So I think Rajesh did mention very interestingly, yes, that skill set reskilling has been there very much in the industry. We've seen it all, but I think the pace with which it needs to change, or people need to upskill, is really dynamic and fast, because the business is changing in such a dynamic way that the backend or your BPOs or your shared services need to adapt very quickly. And that brings you to the topic of attitude and aptitude of those people who you're expecting to change so quickly. And that's what I have seen, right? So in Thomas Cook, we were setting up the shared services. And in the first year itself, we said we will look at implementing robotics as part of our overall strategy. And we did a successful implementation with the same set of people. Now, when you have the same set of people who have the domain knowledge, we need to also ensure they adapt to technology. Now, RPA is a very new age technology. How do we get them skilled to even not being scared of RPA, give the information, really ensure it is automated in the right way? That has been a journey for us. So it was not overnight. We actually ensured we educated them about it, what RPA means, how it can impact their work, what impact it is going to create on the organization, and what value add it is going to bring I think those are steps that we brought in, and we also included HR in that entire concept. So it was a organization-led change which was really done, and then we realized there are some people who could actually pick up things very quickly, and it is not defined to age. We had certain senior people in the teams, they picked up that as well, and some people could not at all adapt, and for them we had to really struggle on the reskilling, where we could bring them to a data analytics kind of a role because they could not fit into a RPA kind of a solution, that they had to monitor. So yes, absolutely, the skill set requirement in terms of the attitude and aptitude both go hand in hand. So for some people who are really very clear saying, we cannot do this, I cannot handle this, they are coming on having those conversations rather than failing and then realizing, okay, I can't do it. Some people, because they have the aptitude, we are pushing them to try it out at least once. So it is a continuous dialogue basis, also the experience with the teams and the credibility the teams would have built. So it's a fine line, I would say. But I'm seeing people given a thrust and a push do adapt to changes pretty quickly. And the people who will not, very rightful, like you said, 20 to 30% of that skill set would go redundant if they're not willing to change at a faster pace that we're expecting.
Absolutely. So it really boils down to the whole change experience journey, right? So there is a reason why the organization needs to make a shift, but then there is an existing employee group,
Yes.
and you need to really do a very good job of, on the one hand, being extremely sensitive and empathetic, and make sure that people are given different ways and means in which they can adopt to this change at a pace that works for them. And on the other hand, you also want to make sure you're not too slow. So as an organization, how do you really keep the wheels running and see where is it that you need to reskill versus where is it that you need to probably hire new talent from the market, or realign jobs of the existing employees.
Correct. And also taking tough
Yeah.
decisions if required. If some people are not going to be upskilled, you will have to look at moving them into a skill set which could be used, so there could be tough decisions to be taken as well.
Correct, absolutely. In fact, since you mentioned RPA, I was reminded of one of the assignments that we were doing for a very large BPO setup, and we implemented this whole concept which was called a hot house, where you really brought in employees in a gradual manner into the new RPA world, let them experience this a bit, let them go back to their old world, and
Correct.
slowly sort of move them into that new world. And you almost had a set of people on this side and on that side. And then gradually, over a period of time, you're seeing everybody getting more comfortable with the new ways of working using RPA. And that was the whole change experience journey. So I think it is an exercise which requires many layers of expertise, as you rightly mentioned, Geeta. So, let's talk a little bit now on the topic of COVID, because no topic of reskilling in today's time is complete without talking about the impact that the pandemic has had. So, COVID has added a whole new dimension to this topic of reskilling. And as I love to say that in the last 7-8 months, we all have been part of the world's biggest remote working experiment. Okay, whether we like it or not, we've become part of that experiment. So we know one thing for sure, that yes, the shades may vary, but we know that no organization is going back to the ways of working and the skill sets which were pre-COVID. So there will be change. Now the extent and the impact of change could be different for different industries. So as again, as EY, when we speak to a lot of organizations, we speak to the C-suite leaders, and we talk to them about what are their biggest priorities as they look to manage business continuity and growth ambitions post COVID. Definitely reskilling is one of the top 3 agenda items. So Rajesh, again, let me request for your views here. How has the world of agents and team members changed on account of the pandemic? Like, do you really need to do a lot of reskilling at that level? And how does this whole worldview differ as you go up the hierarchy?
Sure. And Alpana, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. And usually, if you sit through a summit like this, you see a lot of RPAs and artificial intelligence, and a whole lot of those kind of things. But finally, what we all seem to forget is that last man standing. He is the one who makes or breaks your experience for your clients. So what have we done for him or her? And like the way you could get in smart working tools, you could get in the help items that could go in, their knowledge base could be automated, a ton load of things can happen. But what is that final man standing really going to change, and how are we going to change that person is something that we really need to focus on. And maybe I'll just take a few examples. So we're not talking about, first and foremost, we're talking about agents who possibly are not at least 90% of the agent population really don't go on to, graduate or do something bigger in life. So we're talking about that set of population. For them, they literally live month on month. So how are you going to reskill them? And what are the basics of reskilling that you're going to focus on them? I think what we have taken as one of the key steps out here is, even though we've empowered them with a lot of back-end tools, we have empowered them with the ability to work from home, but we still saw a few things clearly missing, and we're going down to the absolute brass tracks here. Okay, we're not talking any 30,000 feet level, absolute brass tracks. Two things which we really saw missing was time management. They never could adhere to it. I mean, April, May, June, I can bet my last rupee on this, that I have seen every single BPO suffer from a schedule adherence standpoint. Because these kids, suddenly they're not used to getting to the place of work, they're not used to being picked up or dropped, and now they got to be sitting in their home, disciplined, taking that, whether it's a call, an email, a transaction, whatever it is, they need to do that. How good are they from time management? Zilch. So that is something which we worked on. We immediately realized that that's like a hole, and we started working on that. The second thing that we also started working is things like professional ethics, as to how you're going to be doing this work 8 hours sitting in your home when you could potentially have 10 other things that you are forced or maybe expected to do. So these were two things which we focused on. I mean, barring obviously we thought these were things which we could not empower them. There was no robotics in this. There was no, artificial intelligence. And this is going back to what Geeta said. It's more the attitude piece. So we worked on that to sort of, because the rest of it can be either driven by, some of the best tools available in the market, or, we could create it ourselves. So we focused on the attitude part of it. Because the skills is something which we could, constantly keep upgrading. So these attitude part of it was the focus area, at least for the first 90 days. I think that's how we really went through this journey over the last 8 months.
Absolutely well said, Rajesh. And I would not at all disagree to the fact that, this whole attitude change is what we are talking about even at the senior levels, where the whole journey towards this mindset shift to say, if I'm going to be working in a virtual hybrid manner with different parts of my organization, how do I really manage that shift, which is very different from what I have been used to for all these previous decades. So Geeta, what are your views here in terms of, the top areas around the reskilling agenda post-COVID, and, especially when you look at maybe the mid and the senior level, since Rajesh has shed a lot of light on the agent population. Any views that you would like to share there?
So I really saw that the mid-level and the senior management did really struggle in the initial stages, because we are all used to having control, right? We are used to seeing the data ourselves. We are seeing to getting the data on time. And like Rajesh said very well, the time adherence of management did go for a toss in the initial period. So I could see my managers struggling to get that data out from the associates, because see, we are not in the call center. Our shared services doesn't handle call center, but it's more from finance. We handle finance, we handle HR related transactions. It's pretty complex from what we manage there, which means if we don't do our job on time, we have month ends which go for a complete toss. There could be revenue leakages, P&L losses. How do we control that remotely was one of the concerns that our managers did have as a concern. But then we realized that connecting more often, because when you're in office, you connect quite ad hoc basis as well, right? It brought a little bit of structure to us, where we ensured we got on to more of the MS Teams call. ensured we reviewed data more regularly. So the teams also knew that this is the kind of insights we require, the visibility we require, right from productivity levels or certain critical areas under finance. So I think our rigor on the governance increased quite a bit, and that helped the managers to realize what they need to really look at. And during COVID, what has happened from a finance HR perspective, a lot of things changed from a critical aspect. Suddenly, cash flow management was the most critical area. And then you were having a lot of discussions with CFOs about how do we really ensure payments are done in a certain way. That means change in process. Now, when there's a change in process, how do you make them there when you're working offline? So there was a lot of interactions, governance, regular monitoring that really supported us. But yes, initial stages, the managers did struggle, but now I think they are very much in control because of the new norms that we know that we need to ensure that we need to be in touch with people. The second thing is it's just not work related. The pandemic also ensured managers needed to be more empathetic because there are people who are going through so much of struggles working from home. In Bombay, especially, if you remember the power outage that happened, never expected in Bombay, but it put the entire operations for a toss for us. So how do you ensure that you're empathetic in these situations, also still manage and ensure people work a little bit extra to get that sorted? So I think those were real-time challenges which the managers hadn't really faced initially. So I've seen them being more empathetic. We understand what's going at people's residences because they're small houses, multiple people on multiple calls. So I think we've tried to strike a balance there, but finally we are able to deliver what is expected. So in fact, we also transitioned a big process during the work from home, which was, I think, a big feat for us because when you talk about core finance processes moving to a shared services, that becomes a major area as well. So those are some of the insights that we've had, more from a, again, behavioral aspect, how to govern, how to manage, empathetic, how to ensure we keep the connect with people, what kind of data can come to us in a much better fashion. Those are the kind of things that we worked on.
Absolutely. I think really well put, Geeta. So, you're right. It's broken cross-functional boundaries. People have got together because it's about business continuity and cash flow management, and it's not about whether finance alone needs to take the entire burden of it. So, topics of business consideration and business importance, the way different sort of task force teams got created and the way they really went after it showed a lot about the resilience that we have as a country and as an industry. And that's why I think we are in a good place even post the pandemic. And the other one is the whole focus on empathy and just the whole conversation around diversity, inclusion, empathy, culture. Some of these topics have again become so important, and a lot of investment that I see from organizations to make sure that they don't leave these to chance and just say, okay, these are fuzzy and soft and I'm not going to bother about it. It has again become extremely important to business success.
Yeah, even communication for that matter, how the senior management during these times have reached out to various segments of people because they knew that they had to keep that communication on. Otherwise, people were feeling like islands sitting at their house, right? You're working on your own, you may be only interacting with two or three people. But when the senior management, your CEOs, your CFOs are addressing staff and, saying that we are in the same boat, we're facing the same issues, I think that really helped people to hang on and say, okay, we are not the only ones going through this trouble and we have something to deliver here, which is what needs to be done. So I think that was also a very key thing that we did.
Absolutely. So, to sum it up, what I hear you talk about, you both talk about is the fact that, there's a lot of emphasis on reskilling, focus on new roles, new skills, both functional and behavioral. Definitely, automation and digitization will continue to play a very important role. But what we are really seeing here is organizations, treating this topic front and center so that they are responsive, they are being insightful, and also they are being efficient so that they are able to really do justice to the sort of opportunities that lie ahead of us as an industry.
Absolutely.
So great. I think we're almost out of time. So over to you, Ivan, and thank you so much, Geeta and Rajesh, for the conversation.
Pleasure is all ours.
Thank you, Rajesh and Geeta, once again for your insights on the Fireside Chat, Reskilling Workforce. And thank you, Alpana, for summarizing this chat for us and also for doing a fantastic job of moderating the Fireside Chat. Thank you for your time, and we wish you and your respective organizations the very best. going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we move